Hello guys, welcome to my presentation about accelerating sales and workshops with Odoo Studio. Thank you very much for coming here in such an amazing crowd. So let's start with the agenda. So first I will talk about what is actually Studio, and then later on I will go into the usage in sales and workshops. After that I will tell you some experiences and story times with Studio stuff that we had in our whole company. And lastly, I will just go into brief conclusions and recommendations regarding the Studio usage. And of course, after that, we finish it with a good old Q&A. So let's start with myself. I'm a project leader at BrainTech. My name is Ricardo Fiore. And I actually know Odoo now since nearly 5 years. The first time I heard it at my university. And after that, I went to work for BrainTech. And since then, I've been a project leader and consultant. So about the company I work for, which is BrainTech, we're very big in Europe, so the German-speaking part. We have nearly 80 employees, a lot of locations, many companies digitized, and we're just a full-fledged Odoo partner, so we do everything from hosting, on-premise, doing it in the cloud, everything regarding Odoo. That's our spirit, and you could argue we're quite the best because we won the Best Gold Partner Award 4 times now. So regarding the Q&A later, you can already scan the QR code behind me, and then later on we can answer your questions. So I will leave it there for a couple of more seconds, and then we will go to the next slide. Nice. All right, let's go. So what is Odoo Studio? I usually define it like this, that it's a toolbox on steroids, hence here the picture. It's like a zero code, no development needed, drag and drop thing where you can customize your ERP system. And that's just flat out very nice. And what you can do is just with no coding capabilities, with drag and drop UI, you can just drag in new fields, customize something to your liking, change a color of something. So it's like building with Legos, but for an ERP system. And where it shines is exactly with that, like doing small adjustments and also some further automations. But we will get into the detail later. And the boundaries come really in when you think about complex stuff or just doing stuff that is triggered a lot of times, or calculations, or just very strange view things which are trying to edit with Studio, which is usually not possible. So small conclusion here. It's a no-code UI editor. You can use it for many small things, and it has some boundaries. We'll get to that later. So the first use case in sales and workshops is actually using it in combination with OCA and our BrainTech proprietary modules. So at BrainTech, we follow this solutions pyramid, which you see behind me. So when a customer has a requirement, first we always start with Odoo Standard. If it doesn't fulfill the requirement, we look at the OCA to find their solution. If not, we go to the third party. And if that doesn't help, we do a complete custom development. But where Studio comes here into the play is actually when we need to fill the gap between the solutions. So it could be that some customers have so complex requirements that we really need to blend all these solutions together. And here, Studio is amazing because it can fill the gap and create more realistic demos during workshops. You can easily do core tweaks. And the best thing is you have instant validation by the customer. So he can say to you, yes, this is exactly what I want with that specific field, and that's amazing. So it makes the workshop better. What you should avoid here in this use case is using too heavy logic and also performance issues if you just do too many adjustments. The second use case, which for me is the greatest one, is rapid prototyping in the room. So that means that when you have a workshop with a customer, you're really in the room with him, so he's sitting in front of you, and what you do is you rapidly prototype his solution. So the idea is that, like, he says, oh yeah, we have this really strange customer number, like ABC customer code, and of course it's too niche that Odoo doesn't have it, but with the help of Studio, you can easily add it in no time. And this is exactly where Odoo shines. In no time, you can easily customize the ERP system, and you will have an amazing end result for the customer because he will love it more. What is also great is doing co-creation. So when the customer has like a special workflow, you can sit with him together, define the requirements, and build with Studio a first prototype, side by side, just like working together on the solution. And to finalize this, what you need to do is, after you did such a prototype, you obviously need to export it, refactor it, and then develop it properly with a developer. And here, a special thing for later, watch out for your framing. And what I mean by that is, when you do a rapid prototype with the customer, usually he will ask you like, oh my God, how did you do that so fast? And here you really have to decide. Do you want to say, oh yeah, there's this thing called Studio, and you can easily customize your ERP system? Or do you just say, oh yeah, that was just a customization, or it was magic? Later on that more, because it's important. Use case number 3 is mockups to prototypes. That usually means it starts before even a workshop, so pre-sales. It starts when the customer has a perfect idea of what he wants to build. And what you do here is you sketch it first with Studio, you create a concept, and after that you scale it properly as soon as your mockup has been validated with the Studio development. And after that, at the end, of course, you finalize it, document it properly, and export it as a proper development. So to make a conclusion now, what makes Studio amazing for sales? It brings your vision to reality for customers. So you can create stunning solutions in no time and with zero code. Example with that was that special customer code. And the good thing is it creates trust for the customer early. So when he sees that his special code has already been in the ERP, he feels more connected to it. So it's even better for sales, so that he creates trust. And you can also showcase the flexibility of Odoo, like how fast you can find solutions. And it's also a very nice way to differentiate yourself as a partner, like to show off your skills with Studio, or like how far you can go in a prototype. What it also does, it does risk reduction, because when you transform your requirements from the customer early with Studio on, you already validate what he wants. Therefore, you do the risk reduction further on in the process. And generally, you just have better outcomes with Studio. If you would have done an early development with that, with doing it with Studio, you have clearly lower costs, which is amazing. And you have a baseline for the coming project. So when a project then properly starts, you already have something done in Studio. You can use it as a base, and this is really great for project managers. And it could potentially lead to fewer post-sale requests. And here I wanted to show you a quick live demo for the people who do not properly know what Studio is. I did some help desk extensions here. So we are in the help desk app. And what I did here in this ticket, which is called kitchen collapsing, I added a new field, which is called urgency with Studio, a new field impact, which is a selection, and here a priority score. And this priority score is calculated. So every time I change here something, this priority score is multiplied with the numbers that it has from the urgency and the impact. This is done with Studio, all these 3 fields. Furthermore, I've added this Studio field priority score in the Kanban view, which is also custom made. Then I made this stage super urgent, made 2 automations. The first one is that when the priority score is above 100, it automatically goes to the stage super urgent. And the second automation is, as soon as something is in super urgent, Mark Demo is automatically assigned as the person to assign it. So let's test that quickly. Let's put this to 26. You see it's in new stage. Now put it to 169. It goes to super urgent, and Mark Demo is here. Furthermore, I've done a bit of crazier customization. I've created a scheduled action that every 5 minutes increases the priority score by 1. And we can test it here again. If I run it again, you can see it's 169. Now it's 170. And now it's 171. So these are just some examples on what Studio can do. Obviously, it's much more stronger, and you can just do crazy stuff with it. So let's go to the conclusion and recommendations. I've prepared here some slides, and they're categorized according to the things you can do with Studio. So the first thing is what you can do in views and user experience of Odoo. What you should really avoid at this point is doing massive view extensions. This is when you have a lot of different views and you create just generally a mass of new views done with Studio. It's too much code, and it's also really bad if you're doing it since the start. You should avoid this at all costs. Then what is less bad, you see with the orange bubble, is overloading one simple view. Like you saw me editing this Kanban view with the priority score, but what if you did 100 customizations in there? That would be really bad because it would lead to performance loss. But it's arguably better than doing the first thing. What is less bad, so nearly all right, is just doing some cosmetic tweaks here and there, and what is certainly the best practice is doing demo-only tweaks. Yeah, it's great. So for fields and data, what is really bad here, once again, is doing business-critical workflows with Studio. Imagine you have a company and there is some very special thing that you do for your business, and it's not done with Odoo, and you have done it everything with Studio. Bad practice. Avoid doing it. Also, just drag and dropping a lot of fields inside Odoo is equally as bad, because after some time, you will just have a flood of these fields which are automatically generated. So in Odoo Studio, when you do something with the drag and drop, Odoo automatically does everything for you in the background. So it creates these cryptic names of fields. There are duplicates. If we remove it, it's still there, not really deleted. And at the end of the day, if you do this for a year, you really have no transparency of what happened. And what is less bad, but still not so great, is just doing like cross-module fields, like linking from something completely unrelated, like the manufacturing suite to the HR suite. You should also avoid that, but it's not as bad as the other two things. And what is all right is obviously just doing simple fields, as I did in my demo. So then for automations and actions, here we get to the funny part. Again, business critical processes, you shouldn't do it with Studio. And here the most important part, you really need to wage frequency against complexity. Let me make an example. So there are actions which are very, very complex, which have a lot of lines of code, but if they're just run like once a year, it's absolutely all right to do it with Studio. But imagine that, and it runs every 5 minutes, like my action with the increase of 1, that would be very bad. It would hinder the performance, and it's just generally not advised. So we really need to wage that. I have here a little example. This scheduled action does internal valuation for a very, very specific workflow, but it works only on demand and for a very specific inventory operations. And here again, it's all right if you do it with Studio. But if this would happen every day, multiple times, shouldn't do it. What is all right is doing obviously liked actions. Also with Odoo 19, you saw the new AI fields, so doing like small iterations with that should be fine. So here a little story time. This is for you, Joel, if you're watching. So there's that customer, and he did something crazy in our system. So we were wondering, because at some time, all the scheduled actions in our system broke down. So they didn't work anymore. And we were wondering, why are they breaking down? Why are they not running? What are we doing wrong? Where's the problem? And we really struggled to find the problem until we actually looked at the server console and found this one. We found an error where somebody had his birthday printed in the console, and we had no idea, the developer and me, what this was all about. But you can see we have the model there that it's something with the actions, so it has been done in a scheduled action and like something with birthdays. So what we did then is just look at the system, and then we found this scheduled action, which ran every day and checked all partners and sent out birthday emails. But probably this was written with ChatGPT, and it was not code reviewed and failed. And because this action failed, all system actions in Odoo broke. And customer couldn't send out like emails, they didn't receive their goods, and a lot of bad stuff happened. So this really shows you what a disaster it can be, even nowadays with the help of AI. So let's go through the reports. What you shouldn't do with Studio is complex PDFs and conditional stuff. Should avoid it. But great is just doing visual tweaks in a POC. Then for menus, actions, and navigations, what you should avoid here is relinking core navigation. So when you already have a menu and doing a duplicate of that, it's bad, but temporary menus are great. Then for security, you should really avoid changing existing core models. That's really hard to audit, because if you change the existing Odoo security groups, that's just generally bad, because they have a predetermined way of how they handle access, and if you change that, it's hard to audit. But what you can do is temporary groups for demos, like with read-write access, but generally the best way is using Odoo standards UI to create completely new groups with completely new access rights. But obviously, with the new groups, you're limited to Odoo standard, so you cannot do so much complex stuff. And Odoo Studio regarding migration, packaging, and deployment. Here are also 3 lessons. Never use Odoo Studio for export-import as a deployment tool. Please export it properly, split it, test it, and then deploy it with a dev. It's also really bad to let Studio changes live forever when you're doing it like since years. Don't use Studio like that. It's meant for short-term things. And obviously never install Studio changes to prod. Please let it code review by a dev and then decide if you do it properly or put it with Studio. Yeah. Studio use regarding performance and maintainability. Here are actually the 4 biggest factors which you need to take into consideration. So with Studio, you have no debugging capabilities because no dev sees it. You have no versioning, no testing, and no review capabilities. And therefore, this can result in broken workflows, hidden surprises, just as we saw with the birthday thing. And it can even, this is a big thing, it can mix up with existing developments. Like if you have a developer working on a database and you have Studio developments on there and the developer pushes things, it can really mix up the debugging because the developer doesn't know, oh, is this an issue coming from my code or from the Studio code? So what you should do here is clearly document it, version it, test it properly, let someone else review it. Then another thing to take into consideration is just degrading performance. If you do a lot of stuff with Studio, it can result in a lot of bloat. If you have a lot of related fields which do heavy computation, it can obviously make a cumulative degrading performance. Like also if I have a lot of automation on like very hot models such as bookings in the accounting app, not bad. Keep the Studio use light and move the heavy stuff to code. So now I've talked a lot of critique about Studio, but I still think it's an absolutely amazing tool and you should use it. But I wanted to ask the final question, and that is for me, should your potential or existing customer even know about Studio? And my answer to that is actually, it depends. Because I said it earlier with the framing, it really depends on your customer's technical knowledge. Is he aware of what Studio use does to the Odoo system? Can he live with that, or does he have zero knowledge with that? And depending on that, you can choose in a sale or a workshop to already sell Studio as a nice feature, or keep it hidden, because he might destroy too much. It's really up to you. By the way, my personal recommendation is keeping Studio a secret until they have a proper project, so somebody could thoroughly explain what Studio is and what you should do and shouldn't do. But that's just my personal take, so you can do whatever you want. Anyways, that was it. Thank you so much for your attention, and the Q&A is open now.
Thanks, Ricardo, for that talk. Super useful to use Studio. Let's see if there's any questions
Indeed.
for you. Okay, so I've got some questions for you. When using it in workshops, how do you deal with the expectation that is now developed and don't need any further effort? how do you deal with the expectations that are created with Studio?
Well, you just say that, yeah, you made a prototype which is not working properly or is not suited for productive use, and then you estimate it properly to do it with a developer.
Okay.
So it's really about that. You have to say it's not functionally wise, useful for production, and therefore you should do it properly.
Okay. And maybe it's a bit of a technical question in terms of, okay, so if you have built something in Studio already and you don't need it anymore, what do you do with it then?
If you don't need it anymore, you can easily remove it.
Okay.
Properly. Depends, like fields are a bit harder. You have to go into the database, also remove it there, because if you just remove it from the view, it's like on your Windows PC. If you remove like your browser, delete in the page, it's not yet deleted. You need to delete it properly from the whole system, and it's the same thing with Studio.
So I wasn't sure if the question was about expectations or the fields themselves, so good that you answered both. Okay, what are you doing if the customer already did something with Studio, or you're going to continue on that? So if, are you going to continue on something that was already built by the customer?
It really depends again on complexity and what he uses it for. If it's business critical, you should move it obviously to code as soon, but if it's just some small things, it could be fine, but it really depends on the use case. Okay. But in the best things, even if you do a migration from a complete new system, you do a complete export of all Studio stuff and then do it properly in a new system, like if you're already migrating from a new version.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What would be for you the killer feature of Odoo Studio that is offered for workshops?
The best thing for me would be that it has even better exporting capabilities, like maybe I could even decide myself how I want to export it, like as a specific module with a specific name, with the specific layout, you know, like OCA modules are built with the same checks. That would be amazing. Okay. Because then most of the things are already done. You could export it as a very nice package, give it to the dev, quickly review it, and then properly install it. That would be amazing. But right now the problem is that when you do Studio things in an Odoo database, like even if you do changes in manufacturing, if you do changes in production, in purchase app, in accounting, and at the end you want to export it, you have one big mess as a file. And that's the exact problem with Studio exportation.
Okay. Are there any other useful tools to improve workshops?
For sure, yes. Aside from Studio, you should also use obviously presentations and the usual tools that you already have. Maybe there are some new AI tools which I do not know of, which would be great for improving something. Doing a quick development, I don't think that's quite plausible because it does take some time to do it. But as of right now, I couldn't think of anything else.
Okay,
sorry.
Thank you. And then the last question that we have is, how do clients react to this tool?
Usually very great. They're very surprised to it. They like it very much. As I said, like when you have a very specific thing and you can already edit it in a workshop for a customer, they're amazed by it. They fell in love with it because they say, oh, that's exactly what we're looking for. And they like the system even more in the first place. Because usually it's like very cold. When you meet a new system, you have to adapt to it and see what your processes are and see what the Odoo processes are, and then you have to meet in the middle, and that's like, it bridges between that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. That's all the questions that we have. Yeah, that's it. Thank you
very much.
Thanks.
Ciao, ciao.